Fiancée took a break to tour Europe, and I canceled the wedding. Maybe writing this down will help me process it all. Maybe some of you have been through something similar. Either way, I need to get this off my chest. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years. 4 years of what I genuinely believed was the real deal. We met during our sophomore year of college at a mutual friend's party, and from that first conversation about our shared obsession with true crime podcasts and hiking trails, I was hooked. He was brilliant, funny, and had this infectious energy that made even grocery shopping feel like an adventure. Our relationship wasn't perfect, no relationship is, but it was solid. We communicated, we compromised, we built a life together piece by piece. After graduation, we both landed decent jobs in the city, found an apartment we could actually afford, barely, and adopted a rescue dog named Murphy. Everything felt like it was falling into place exactly as it should. When I proposed to her last November at the same hiking trail where we'd had our first real date, she said yes before I could even finish my rehearsed speech. I remember her crying, laughing, and kissing me all at once while Murphy barked excitedly at our feet. Her parents were thrilled. My parents were thrilled. We set a date for September, giving ourselves about 10 months to plan everything. The wedding planning started off great. We were actually enjoying it, which I know is rare. We found a venue we loved, this renovated barn about 90 miles outside the city with string lights and exposed wooden beams. Sarah's mom helped us narrow down caterers. My best friend Jake agreed to be my best man without hesitation. We spent weekends addressing save the dates and debating whether to go with a DJ or a live band. Then March happened. We were sitting on our couch on a random Tuesday evening, Murphy sprawled between us, when Sarah turned off the TV and said we needed to talk. Those 4 words that make everyone's stomach drop. She looked nervous, fidgeting with the engagement ring on her finger. A habit I'd noticed she'd developed lately but hadn't thought much about. "I think we need to take a break," she said quietly. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. "What? Sarah, we're literally getting married in 6 months. What are you talking about?" She explained that she'd been feeling overwhelmed. The wedding planning, the pressure from both families, the reality of committing to forever, it was all hitting her at once. She said she loved me, but needed space to clear her head and make sure this was what she really wanted. And here was the kicker. She wanted to take a 3-month trip to Europe with some friends from college. 3 months? I repeated, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Who goes on a 3-month break right before their wedding? She insisted it wasn't about us. It was about her needing to feel like herself again before becoming someone's wife. Her college friends, Tyler, Monica, and Brett, had been planning this trip for months, apparently. They'd all saved up, taken time off work, and she felt this was her last chance to do something spontaneous and free before settling into married life. I was furious, hurt, confused. But what was I supposed to say? If I demanded she stay, I'd be the controlling fiancé. If I said no to the break, she might resent me forever. So I agreed, hating every second of it. We decided we'd be on pause, whatever that meant, and she'd leave in 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were brutal. Sarah was excited about the trip, constantly on her phone, coordinating with Tyler, Monica, and Brett. Meanwhile, I was dying inside, trying to act supportive while feeling like my entire world was crumbling. When I drove her to the airport, she kissed me goodbye and promised everything would be okay. "I love you. This is going to be good for us. Trust me." I wanted to believe her. The 3 months she was gone were the longest of my life. She'd send occasional texts, photos of the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, various beaches I couldn't name, always group photos with her friends, always captions about finding herself and living in the moment. I responded with supportive messages that felt hollow coming from my fingers. My friends tried to get me out of the apartment, but I mostly just worked, came home to Murphy, and counted down the days. When Sarah finally came back in June, bronzed and glowing and full of stories, I was so relieved I almost forgot why I'd been angry. She practically jumped into my arms at the airport, and for a moment, it felt like before, like we were us again. "I missed you so much," she said into my neck. "I'm ready now. I'm ready to marry you." We fell back into our routines surprisingly quickly. The wedding planning resumed with renewed energy. Sarah seemed lighter, happier, more present. I convinced myself the break had actually worked, that maybe she really did just need that time to be sure. We moved the wedding date to November to give ourselves more time, but everything else stayed the same. Same venue, same caterers, same plans. It was almost perfect. Almost. About 3 weeks after she got back, we were at her parents' house for Sunday dinner. Her younger sister Emma was home from grad school, and the whole family was there. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone was asking Sarah about Europe, wanting to hear all about her adventures. Sarah's phone kept buzzing during dinner. She'd glance at it and silence it, but it kept happening. Her mom finally joked about how popular she was, and Sarah laughed it off, saying it was just the group chat with her travel friends reminiscing about the trip. After dinner, while Sarah was helping her mom with dessert, Emma pulled me aside. "Can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, looking uncomfortable. We stepped out onto the back porch, and Emma was clearly wrestling with something. She kept starting sentences and stopping, running her hands through her hair. "I don't know if I should tell you this, but if I were in your position, I'd want to know." My stomach dropped. "What is it, Em?" She pulled out her phone and showed me her Instagram. She'd been tagged in some photos from a friend of a friend who'd apparently been in Barcelona at the same time as Sarah's group. I scrolled through the pictures, and my blood turned to ice. There was Sarah, and there was Brett, one of her college friends, but they weren't just friends in these photos. His arm was around her waist. They were kissing in one photo. In another, they were sharing a drink with 2 straws. In another, taken at what looked like a beach at sunset, he was kissing her neck while she laughed. "There are more," Emma said softly. "From different cities, different weeks. Ryan, I'm so sorry." I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through dozens of photos spanning the entire 3 months. Sarah and Brett at the Trevi Fountain. Sarah and Brett at some club in Amsterdam. Sarah and Brett looking very comfortable in what appeared to be a hotel room. They weren't even trying to hide it. "Who is Brett?" I asked, my voice not sounding like my own. Emma hesitated. "He's her ex-boyfriend from sophomore year. They dated for like 8 months before you guys met." Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. The sudden need for a break, the 3-month trip, the specific friend group, the finding herself rhetoric. She'd planned this. She'd orchestrated an entire elaborate scheme to spend 3 months with her ex without technically being unfaithful because we were on a break. I thanked Emma, asked her not to say anything yet, and went back inside. Sarah was laughing with her cousins, looking carefree and happy. I made excuses about not feeling well and left. She texted me later asking if I was okay. I said I was fine, just tired. I spent that entire night going down the rabbit hole. I found Brett's social media. His accounts were public, and he'd posted plenty of photos from the trip, too. Sarah was in most of them. The comments were telling. Friends saying things like, "Finally," and "You two are perfect together," and "Glad you guys worked it out." There were even some older photos from years ago, from when they dated in college, with similar energy. I felt like an idiot, a complete fool. While I'd been at home, miserable and faithful, planning our wedding and taking care of our dog, she'd been living out some romantic European fantasy with her ex-boyfriend, guilt-free because of a technicality she'd created. The next morning, I confronted her. I showed her the photos. Her face went white, then red. She tried to explain, to justify it. "We were on a break," she said, which would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. "I needed to get him out of my system before committing to you forever. It didn't mean anything. You planned a 3-month trip with your ex-boyfriend and lied to me about needing space," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You manipulated me into agreeing to a break so you could sleep with someone else without feeling guilty about it." She started crying, saying she loved me, that it was a mistake, that Brett didn't matter. She said she'd come back to me, didn't she? That proved I was the one she wanted. I couldn't even look at her. Over the next few days, the full truth came out in bits and pieces. Brett had reached out to her in January, saying he'd never gotten over her. They'd started talking again, just as friends at first, or so she claimed. When he invited her on the Europe trip with their old college crew, she'd been tempted. But she knew I'd never be okay with her traveling with her ex, so she manufactured a reason for us to take a break. The overwhelmed by wedding planning excuse was partially true, she admitted, but mostly it was a cover story. She'd wanted to explore whether there was still something between her and Brett without losing me as a backup plan. The whole thing was calculated. "I chose you," she kept saying. "After everything, I came back and chose you." But that wasn't the point. She'd used me. She'd made me think I was the problem, that my love was suffocating her, when really she just wanted permission to betray me without consequences. I knew what I had to do, but I wanted it to hurt the way she'd hurt me. Our wedding was now just 2 months away. Most of the vendors were paid. The invitations had gone out. Everyone knew. Sarah assumed we'd work through it somehow, that I'd eventually forgive her because of the sunk costs and the pressure from our families. She had no idea what was coming. I played along for a few weeks. I pretended to be working through my feelings. I went to the final venue walkthrough with her. I confirmed details with the caterer. I smiled at her parents' house and acted like we were rebuilding trust. Sarah was relieved, thinking she'd gotten away with it, that I was choosing to let it go for the sake of our future. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I struck. We were having a rehearsal dinner at her parents' house, a smaller, intimate gathering with just immediate family and the wedding party. Everyone was there. Her parents, her grandparents, her siblings, my parents, my brother Jake, and a few others. About 25 people total. After dinner, Sarah's dad stood up to make a toast. He gave this beautiful speech about watching his daughter grow up, about how happy he was that she'd found me, about the future we were building together. Everyone was smiling. Some people were crying happy tears. When he finished, I stood up. "I'd like to say some words, too," I said, raising my glass. Sarah beamed at me, probably expecting some romantic declaration. Everyone turned to face me, expecting something sweet. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially Sarah's family who welcomed me with open arms 4 years ago. You've treated me like a son, and I've always appreciated that." Smiles all around. Sarah's mom was already dabbing at her eyes. "I also want to thank Sarah," I continued, "for teaching me some valuable lessons about trust and honesty in a relationship." Sarah's smile faltered slightly, but she probably thought I was building to something romantic. "For example, I learned that needing space can actually mean wanting to spend 3 months in Europe sleeping with my ex-boyfriend without technically being unfaithful." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah's face drained of all color. "I learned that a break is sometimes just a convenient loophole that allows someone to betray their partner without the inconvenience of guilt," I continued, my voice steady despite my heart pounding. "And I learned that some people will manipulate the person who loves them, manufacture entire scenarios, and lie to their face as long as it serves their purposes." "Ryan," Sarah started, standing up, but I kept going. "I have proof if anyone's interested. Photos from the trip, social media posts, time-stamped evidence of my fiancé spending 3 months with Brett Harrison," that's her ex-boyfriend from college for those who don't know, "while I was here planning our wedding and taking care of our dog." I pulled out my phone and started showing the photos to people nearby. Emma had already seen them, but watching Sarah's parents, grandparents, and other relatives react in real time was something else. Her mother gasped. Her father looked like he might have a heart attack. Her grandmother's face hardened into an expression I'd never seen before. "Sarah, is this true?" her father demanded. He was crying now, trying to explain, using the same excuses she'd given me. "We were on a break. I came back to him. I chose him." "You chose him," her mother repeated, her voice sharp. "You orchestrated a 3-month affair and think that's choosing him?" The room erupted. Family members were yelling. Sarah was sobbing. Her father was demanding explanations. My mom was just staring at Sarah with this expression of complete disgust. My dad had his hand on my shoulder. Silent support. I waited for the chaos to die down slightly, then delivered the final blow. "Obviously, there is not going to be a wedding. I've already spoken to the venue and most of the vendors. Some deposits are non-refundable, and I'll be pursuing legal action against Sarah for half of those costs. The wedding is canceled, our engagement is over, and Sarah, I'll be moved out of the apartment by the end of the month. I've already found a place. You can keep Murphy since he was technically a gift from your parents, even though I've been the one taking care of him." That last part hurt to say. I loved that dog. But I wanted a clean break, and I knew taking Murphy would give her ammunition to stay in contact. Sarah was hysterical at this point, begging me not to do this, not like this, not in front of everyone. But that was exactly the point. She'd humiliated me privately for months. She'd made me feel crazy for being uncomfortable with the break. She'd lied to both our families about why we'd postponed the wedding the first time. Now everyone knew the truth. Her father tried to talk to me, to apologize, to somehow salvage the situation. But I was done. I'd said everything I needed to say. I left that house, got in my car, and drove to my brother's place where I'd been secretly staying for the past few days. The fallout was spectacular. Sarah tried calling and texting hundreds of times. I blocked her. Her friends, not the Europe crew, but her other friends, reached out to tell me I'd gone too far, that public humiliation was cruel, that I should have handled it privately. I told them they were welcome to be friends with someone who thinks casual betrayal is fine as long as there's a technicality involved. Emma texted me to say that Sarah's family was in meltdown mode. Her parents were furious with her. Her grandparents refused to speak to her. Her younger brother apparently told her she was dead to him. The whole family had been so invested in our relationship, had been so excited about the wedding, and finding out it was all based on lies destroyed something fundamental. Word spread fast. Our mutual friends were forced to pick sides. Most of them chose mine once they heard the full story. Sarah's reputation took a massive hit. Brett, I heard through the grapevine, had ghosted her after everything blew up. Apparently, their European romance lost its appeal once it wasn't forbidden anymore. My parents were incredibly supportive. My mom admitted she'd never fully liked Sarah, but had kept quiet because I seemed happy. My dad helped me move my stuff out of the apartment and into my new place, a smaller one-bedroom about 15 miles away. But it was mine alone. The hardest part was actually going through with canceling everything. Some vendors were understanding and refunded deposits. Others weren't. I lost about $7,000 total on non-refundable costs, and I'm still deciding whether the legal fight to get half of that from Sarah is worth the emotional energy. The invitations had to be unsent. I had to call or text nearly 150 people to tell them the wedding was off. Most were supportive once I gave them the abbreviated version. A few asked if we could work it out. I shut that down immediately. It's been 3 months since the rehearsal dinner. 3 months since I blew up my entire life in the most dramatic way possible. And honestly, I don't regret it. People have asked me if I went too far, if public humiliation was necessary, if I should have just broken up with her quietly and moved on with dignity. Here's the thing. Sarah never would have faced real consequences otherwise. She would have spun the story to make herself the victim. She would have told people we had issues, or that I was controlling, or that we grew apart. Her family would have supported her unconditionally because they wouldn't have known the truth. By exposing her exactly the way I did, in front of everyone who mattered, I ensured the truth was out there. I ensured she couldn't control the narrative. And yeah, maybe it was cruel. Maybe it was vindictive, but after months of being manipulated, lied to, and made to feel like I was overreacting to reasonable concerns, I wanted her to feel a fraction of the humiliation I'd felt. I'm not proud of the person I became in that moment. The rage, the calculated planning, the public spectacle, that's not usually who I am. But she broke something in me when she did what she did. And I needed her to understand that actions have consequences, even if those consequences come after you think you've gotten away with it. These days, I'm doing okay. Not great, but okay. I'm in therapy, working through the trust issues and the anger. I'm focusing on my job, my hobbies, my friendships. I'm even thinking about getting a dog of my own, though the thought of replacing Murphy hurts too much right now. I've been on a couple of dates, nothing serious. It's hard to imagine trusting someone enough to build a life with them again. But I'm only 27. I have time to heal, to figure out who I am without Sarah, to eventually find someone who wouldn't dream of doing what she did. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just walked away quietly, if the dramatic confrontation was worth it. Then I remember the look on her face when she realized everyone knew what she'd done, that she couldn't manipulate or charm her way out of it, and I think, yeah, it was worth it. Sarah's still in the city, as far as I know. We don't have any mutual friends anymore. Everyone picked a side. I've heard through various channels that she's struggling, that the social fallout has been severe, that she had to explain to her new coworkers why her engagement ended so spectacularly. Part of me feels bad about that, a small part. The part that remembers the girl I fell in love with 4 years ago, before everything went wrong. But mostly, I feel nothing. The love I had for her died the moment I saw those photos, and no amount of tears or apologies could bring it back. So, that's my story. The tale of how I went from planning the happiest day of my life to orchestrating the most dramatic breakup of my social circle's recent memory. Messy, it's painful, and it's probably not how the advice columns would tell you to handle betrayal. But it's what I needed to do to move on. Thanks for reading. And if anyone out there is going through something similar, if someone's asking for a break right before a major commitment, trust your gut. If it feels wrong, it probably is. Related comments. Dude, I'm torn on this one. What she did was absolutely horrible, no question. The manipulation, the lies, the calculated betrayal, that's next level awful. But exposing her like that in front of her grandparents, her whole family, that's something you can never take back. My brother did something similar when his ex cheated on him. He told everyone at their engagement party. Yeah, she deserved it. But 5 years later, he told me he still feels guilty about it. Not about ending things, but about the method. Her grandmother literally had a stroke 2 weeks after from the stress. She was already in poor health, but still. I guess what I'm saying is, you were justified in your anger, but maybe not in the execution. You could have told her parents privately, canceled the wedding, and let them decide what to tell the rest of the family. The public humiliation was for your satisfaction, not for justice. That said, I probably would have done the exact same thing in the moment, so who am I to judge? Sometimes when people hurt us that deeply, we want them to hurt too. Comment. She planned this. She didn't just cheat. She engineered an entire 3-month affair and manipulated you into thinking it was your fault for being suffocating. That's narcissistic-level manipulation. Everyone saying you went too far is probably the same type of person who would do what Sarah did. They're worried that if they ever get caught, someone might hold them accountable publicly. You know what would have happened if you handled this with dignity and privately? She would have told everyone you were the problem, that you were controlling, that you couldn't handle her being independent, that you broke up with her over nothing. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. By doing it publicly, you controlled the narrative with facts. You didn't spread lies. You showed actual proof of what she did. That's not cruel. That's just honest. Also, anyone feeling bad for Sarah needs to remember she was prepared to marry him while keeping this secret. She was going to build a life with him based on a lie. That's sociopathic. Comment. ESH, but mostly you, honestly. Yeah, she cheated. Yeah, it was shitty. But you didn't expose her because you wanted truth. You exposed her because you wanted revenge. There's a difference. You said yourself, I wanted her to feel a fraction of the humiliation I'd felt. That's not about justice. That's about punishment. You wanted to hurt her, and you succeeded. Congrats, I guess. My ex-husband cheated on me with his coworker for 8 months. 8 months while I was pregnant with our second kid. You know what I did? I filed for divorce, told our families privately what happened, and moved on with my life. I didn't need to destroy him publicly because I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in healing. 3 years later, I'm genuinely happy. I have a great partner, my kids are thriving, and I don't waste energy hating my ex. Meanwhile, you're in therapy 3 months later still processing rage. Who really won here? Also, the way you calculated everything, planned it out, waited for the perfect moment to strike, that's honestly scary. Like you have that capacity for cold manipulation too. You just think yours was justified. Author. I respect your perspective, but I disagree. Her family deserved to know who they were supporting. And I'm in therapy because I was betrayed by someone I loved, not because I regret how I handled it. I don't think wanting consequences for someone's actions makes me manipulative, but I hear you. Comment. Info. Did Emma know about this the entire time Sarah was in Europe, or did she only find out when she saw those Instagram photos? Because if Emma knew for 3 months and only told you after Sarah came back and you were actively planning the wedding again, that's pretty messed up too. Like, I get she was in a difficult position, but you could have avoided a lot of pain if she'd told you immediately. Also, I'm confused about the timeline. You said Sarah left in March for 3 months, came back in June, and then the rehearsal dinner was 2 weeks before the wedding in November. So you found out in June and then pretended everything was fine for 5 months before the rehearsal dinner? Or did you find out later? The way you wrote it made it seem like Emma showed you right after Sarah got back. Not judging either way, just trying to understand the full picture here. Author. Emma found out the same time she told me, when those photos got posted and she was tagged. She showed me within hours of seeing them. And yeah, I found out about 3 weeks after Sarah returned, late June, and the rehearsal dinner was in August. We'd moved the wedding from September to November because of the Europe trip, so there was time between her return and the wedding. I pretended for about 6 weeks total, not 5 months. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Comment. YTA for giving Murphy back. Everything else, justified, warranted, whatever. But that dog loved you. You loved that dog. You were his primary caretaker for years. And you just gave him up to hurt Sarah more? Or to avoid dealing with her? Dogs aren't chess pieces in a breakup, man. They're living beings who form attachments. Murphy probably doesn't understand why you disappeared from his life. That's the only part of this story that genuinely makes me sad. You should have fought for the dog. Her parents technically gave him as a gift, but you raised him. Most courts would have sided with you as the primary caretaker if you'd pushed for it. I hope Murphy's doing okay, and that Sarah actually takes care of him properly now that you're not there to do it. Author. Yeah, this one keeps me up at night more than anything else. You're right. I gave him up because I thought it would be too messy to fight over him, and I didn't want any reason to stay in contact with Sarah. But I miss him every day. It was a mistake, and if I could go back, I'd fight for him. I've actually been thinking about reaching out through Emma to see if Sarah would let me have visitation or something, but I don't know if that's realistic. Comment. I need to know, what happened to Brett? Did he face any consequences, or did he just slink away? Because honestly, the fact that he ghosted Sarah after everything blew up is hilarious. Like, he was all about this forbidden European romance when it was secret and exciting, but the moment there were real-world consequences, he vanished. Classic. Did any of his friends or family find out? Did Tyler and Monica know what was happening during the trip? Were they covering for them? I feel like there's a whole other side of this story involving Brett and the friend group that we're not hearing about. Author. From what I heard through mutual friends, Brett basically panicked when everything went public. Apparently, he'd told Sarah he wanted to be with her, but once her life imploded and I wasn't in the picture anymore, he suddenly wasn't interested. Real commitment there. Tyler and Monica definitely knew. They had to have known. I've seen photos where it's just the four of them, and Sarah and Brett are all over each other. They were complicit in the whole thing. I haven't spoken to any of them since, and I don't plan to. As for Brett facing consequences, I don't think so. He doesn't live in our city, and we didn't have any mutual friends or family, so he just got to walk away clean, while Sarah dealt with all the fallout, which honestly proves he was never serious about her in the first place. He just wanted a European fling with an ex. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.